gather today, Madam Speaker, to ensure the survival of our grand American experiment, the greatest democracy this world has ever known. And there are millions of people watching today's proceedings. The eyes of the world are on us now, my colleagues, wondering if we will keep the faith, wondering if our constitutional republic will hold.
That was Democratic Congressman Joe Neguse speaking 1 year ago today, just as a mob of insurrectionists stormed the Capitol. The Colorado Democrat and his staff were ultimately evacuated from the House floor by Capitol Police. Congressman Neguse, you might recall, later served as a House manager in President Trump's second impeachment trial, and he joins us now. Congressman, grateful for your time on this important day. In that speech, before all hell broke loose, just before all hell broke loose, you were talking about the eyes of the world are on us. Well, the world got to see what happened. You were threatened. Where are we a year later? I don't mean it as trite as it sounds, but are we better or are we worse?
Well, it's good to be with you, John. It was a surreal day, and certainly when I said those comments on the House floor, I could not have imagined what would unfold over the course of the next 24 hours. It's a tough question in terms of where we are today. Of course, there are many of us who are deeply concerned, myself included, about the disinformation and the misinformation, the lies that have only metastasized since January 6th, and that should give us great cause for the concern. At the same time, I derive great strength from knowing that at the end of the day on January 6th, those who tried to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power ultimately failed. For me, a defining memory for that day will not necessarily be being evacuated off the House floor, but returning to the House floor that evening and certifying the election at almost 4 in the morning, as you'll recall. Ensuring that that bedrock principle holds here in the United States. But the question now is, will it hold in the future?
What was it like on the House floor about this time, maybe an hour later, a year ago today?
As I said, it was surreal. To be honest, none of us anticipated this happening. We were all very committed to doing the work of certifying the election results. I was making a presentation, as you just saw, with my colleagues, Representative Raskin, Representative Schiff, and Chairwoman Lofgren, and then started getting text messages from my wife and other family members and friends alerting me that something had gone terribly wrong. We then saw the speaker removed from the dais, and Steny Hoyer, the majority leader who was sitting just a few rows behind us, removed shortly thereafter. And then at some point, as one of your colleagues just reported a few minutes ago, the chaplain reported that, or rather, a police officer came forward and said the Capitol had been breached. And a chaplain began to offer prayers. And the whole experience, as I said, was surreal, and it was clearly traumatic for the Congress, for the country, for all who were in the Capitol. I'm so grateful for the police officers who sacrificed so much to protect me and my colleagues and to keep us safe on what was clearly a harrowing day for our republic.
You know something about accountability, and sometimes even if you have accountability, what you think is accountability, what happens in today's political culture, in the sense that Donald Trump was impeached twice. You were part of the second impeachment. Donald Trump is still the leader of the Republican Party. That's unthinkable to many of us who've covered politics for a long time, but that's the world we live in today. A year ago, you had an exchange with Scott Perry, one of the Republican members of the House, who was trying to help Donald Trump subvert the election. The January 6th Investigative Committee now is investigating, and they want to talk to people like Congressman Perry. Where do you see that investigation going? And should often, because you have one of those pins, you get excused, if you will. I'm a member. You can't do that to me. Should the Republicans be put in the chair under oath?
Yeah, well, look, I trust Chairman Thompson and Vice Chair Cheney, who have done a remarkable job leading the Select Committee on January 6th. I trust their judgment, and they'll make the appropriate decisions as to whether or not compulsory process should be issued to any members of Congress. At the end of the day, my understanding is they've issued voluntary requests for participation, and I would hope that members of Congress would do the right thing and would participate in that process. The committee's work could not be more critical, and it in part dovetails with what President Biden said today in a speech that I thought was very powerful and compelling. The misinformation that has permeated so much of the public over the course of the last 12 months should be disconcerting to every American. And the Select Committee's work in uncovering the truth and sharing it with the American people couldn't be more important. So look, I hope that they get to the bottom of it and are able to interview every witness that they've requested.
So let me take another time before I let Dan on this. To that very point, though, we were just listening moments ago. We're not going to put it on CNN, but we were just listening to two of your Republican colleagues right over there lying lying still. Lying still. So we cannot air that, so we don't perpetuate the lies, but there is an echo chamber, an ecosystem that does, that continues to this day. And I, as someone, again, I've done this for 35, 36 years. I ask myself every day, how do you break through? What do we have to do?
It's confounding. I don't have a good answer for you, John. I mean, I think we all struggle with that same problem. Clearly, the echo chambers of social media in particular have created an environment, an ecosystem whereby people can go a full day, a full week, a full year without ever being exposed to an idea different than the one they already have. And that reinforcing mechanism that exists on social media and so much of the television ecosystem. I think what we're doing today, sharing the truth, reminding people what happened on that terrible day, and talking about what needs to happen to prevent it from happening again is critically important.
What's it like as a member of Congress, and what has it been like? Your colleague Dean Phillips was in this chair last hour saying that there was a fleeting moment of bipartisanship on that day 1 year ago, and then it went away when I guess the Republicans realized that there was no overcoming the power of the lies that the former president has been spewing. But what's it like on a one-on-one basis with the Republicans who probably know better?
Well, I'd say this. First, I give credit where credit is due, that ultimately there were some Republicans who stood up and chose country over party in the days and weeks after January 6th. Of course, Liz Cheney is a prime example. But my colleague, Dean Phillips, couldn't be more accurate. That moment of bipartisan comity, if you will, was fleeting. Unfortunately, there was a moment there where I thought we all would come together and do what was necessary to safeguard our republic. But unfortunately, former President Trump still very much has a stranglehold on much of the Republican Party as it exists today. And so many of my colleagues who, as President Obama said today, know better, nonetheless continue to perpetrate these lies and this misinformation. It's going to be a long road ahead. I think it's going to take people of good faith on both sides of the aisle to step up and to say the truth as to what happened on January 6th. But yeah, the environment here, as you know, couldn't be more polarizing. That, to some extent, you both have been in Washington for a long time, existed before January 6th, but it has accelerated, I think, in ways that none of us could have imagined.
Yeah, there's a difference between polarization, whether you like it or don't like it, whether you benefit from it or don't benefit from it, and an attack on the United States government.
Exactly.
With the goal. And that is what the Republicans, most of them, and you mentioned some of courage, and those, they should be applauded. That's what they're trying to whitewash. That they're trying to make the case that this was just another day in a messed up town. Get over it. We can't get over it.
That's right. And what's so disturbing is so many of them were in the chamber with us on January 6th. It's not as though, I mean, the Republicans were there, right? And to the extent that you now hear them describing it as a tourist visit and all the rest.
I assume they were scared.
Yes, of course. Everybody was very worried about their own safety, the safety of their staff, and ultimately the safety of our republic and what it says to the rest of the world, that you have the first breach of this building, since the War of 1812, this citadel of liberty that stands behind us.
Congressman, grateful for your time today. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can check it. It's all right. Okay. Coming up.